Hi, Mayor. How are you?
I am well. Yourself?
Trying to see if I can hear.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, I can hear you now.
Okay,
Okay, perfect. Did you get your agenda?
I did. I'm looking at it right now, so thank you for that.
Yeah, no problem. I'll let you review that.
Okay.
Hello, who just signed on?
Shane,
Hi, Shane. I'm going to change your name.
can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine.
Okay. I'm not echoey?
No, not at all.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to mute you, okay?
Okay.
Hi, welcome to the meeting. Can you say your name, please? Can I get the person whose phone number ends in 698? Can you please say your name?
Mike Farmer.
Oh, perfect. Welcome.
Welcome, for sure.
Welcome, Counselor Boersma.
Hey, hello. Wanted to get in early just to make sure I did it right.
Perfect. You're in.
Awesome. Great. I'll just mute my mic and hang out for a while.
Awesome. Thank you. Hello, welcome to the meeting. Can I have the person ending in 588 say your name?
Hello,
Hi,
it's John Henry.
awesome. Okay, I'm gonna change your name. Welcome. And I see Councilor Stucci joined as well. Okay, I'm gonna add one more person. Hello, welcome to the meeting. Can I have you say your name?
John Henry.
Hello.
Whoever's ending in 999.
Are you talking to me?
Is that okay? Perfect. You were the last person. So Ken Anderson, welcome. Okay, I'm gonna let Mr. Casey in. Mr. Casey, is that you? It must be.
I don't have a microphone on my computer, so the Zoom thing doesn't work.
That's okay. This works. Okay, I'm gonna let one person in.
I can hear you really good, Mike.
Hello. Can you state your name, whoever just joined?
This is Martin.
Okay, Mr. Casey. I have you in here as
Well, it's showing
twice.
me up there.
Hello, welcome to the meeting. Can you state your name, please?
Hello.
Okay. Deputy Mayor, welcome. Hello, can I have the last person that joined state your name, please? Ending in 633.
Hey, it's Chief Escalera. How are you?
Oh, perfect. I'm doing good. Thank you for joining.
All right, everyone, it's 6:30, and we're gonna go ahead and call this meeting to order of the Sunset City Council regular meeting for Monday, April 27th, 2020. The time is now 6:30, and we will go ahead and get started. Madam City Clerk, will you please do a roll call?
Sure. Okay. Mayor Guerrero,
Here?
Deputy Mayor Stremler, Deputy Mayor Stremler.
Here.
Perfect. Counselor Farmer,
Here.
Counselor Farmer,
Here.
Counselor Farmer. I see he's here in our but
He- I
he's not
could
saying
hear him,
anything,
Jackie.
so-
He has responded twice.
I
We
can hear him as well.
Jackie.
Counselor Henry,
I'm here. I can hear Mike Farmer well as well.
Counselor Restucci.
I'm here and I can hear him as well as also.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Counselor Broersma.
I am here.
Perfect. And Counselor Hicks has requested an excused absence. City Manager Casey.
Here.
City Clerk Renteria, I am here. Finance Director Alba.
Here.
Fire Chief Anderson.
I'm here.
Police Chief Escalera.
Here.
Public Works Director Fisher.
Here.
Okay.
Okay, thank you for the roll call. We do have Councilor Hicks who has requested an excused absence from tonight's meeting due to his work schedule. Is there any objection to excusing his absence from tonight's meeting?
No objection from me.
Okay, hearing no objections, Councilor Hicks is excused from tonight's meeting. Up next, we have a public comment report pursuant to Governor's Proclamation 20-28 related to suspending certain provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act during the COVID-19 pandemic. No in-person public comments will be accepted. Residents were asked to submit written comments in advance via email. Council may refer items to staff for review and or research for presentation at future council meetings. I will now ask City Manager Martin Casey to read any public comments received.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The city received no public comments for this meeting.
Thank you. Up next, we have our consent agenda, which consists of approval of the minutes for the April 13th, 2020 regular meeting. Approved payroll vouchers numbers 1187.25 through 1187.33 and wire transfers as listed for $442,516.64 for the period ending on April 10th, 2020. Claim vouchers voucher numbers 98883 through 98924 and wires transfers as listed for $136,164.71 for the period ending on April 8th, 2020. Voucher numbers 98925 through 98969 and wire transfers are listed for $100,091.60 for the period ending on April 5th, 2020. Council members, I'll call each one of you to see if you have any questions on these items, and then we'll move on to requesting a motion. Deputy Mayor Stremler, any questions on our consent agenda?
I have none.
Councilor Farmer,
I have none.
Councilor Henry,
No, sir.
Councilor Restucci,
I have none, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Hicks. Oh, he's out today. Councilor Broersma.
I have nothing.
Thank you. I do have a couple questions, Mr. City Manager. I'm not sure if maybe Alyssa will be able to answer these or Shane. But this is on page 5 for City of Sunset IT Services. And I think this is more of the cost allocation. I just wanted to know the amount that is allocated, is that for the quarter or half of the year? This is transaction number 3907 and the amount of $42,037.58.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Actually, I'll ask Finance Director Elizabeth Alba to speak to the allocation for IT services, if that's quarterly, monthly, or semi-annual.
So that would be quarterly. This is for the first quarter. And Delilah and I actually discussed, and we may start doing these monthly so that the cash flow for the IT fund doesn't show a negative, because it did show a negative for the first quarter until this transaction was completed.
Okay, thank you. So we're looking at the full year about 160,000. Was it just a heavy quarter for the first quarter?
I believe we have budgeted for that fund almost $300,000. I'd have to look.
Yeah, I'm just curious because it does. I know IT services. I think we budgeted over 100, but I didn't think it was. 160. I thought it was a little bit less.
I don't have the exact amount of what our budget is, but we want to remember that this does include the internet.
Oh,
We
okay.
are a part of Yakima County's fiber. And so this is not just for the IT services, it is also for maintaining our servers in their rack at their secure emergency storage, and then also the actual internet that comes through their fiber.
Okay, thank you, Elizabeth. The next one I have is on page 11, 3938, which is the Clean Air Authority. And I know in the past, I think someone asked this question, maybe I asked the question regarding the $1,685 assessment that we pay them for their services. I thought we would talk about trying to get somebody to be the representative from Sunnyside to these guys. I'm not sure if they meet online or email only, or if it's a committee that they have. City Manager, do you have any information on this?
I don't have information in terms of the discussion of having someone from the city represented. I can share that the director of the Yakima Regional Clean Air Authority does send us regular updates. I do receive those of their business meetings and board meetings and other activities. But I don't know that, I'm not aware of a conversation about a specific membership on that. I'd be happy to follow up on that with Pamela Herman, who's their records officer and coordinates sending out those meetings, and see what information I can bring back to council.
Mr. Mayor, this is Councilor Restucci. I may have some information there if you want me to add it.
Yeah, yes, please.
Okay, so the Clean Air Agency is a separate agency in the county. All the appointments are done by the county commissioners. I was the alternate last year, but I'm no longer on the Clean Air Agency that I know of. If there is a council member or someone interested in serving, they need to contact Norm Childress, our county commissioner, so that they can be put forward.
So it sounds like there is an option in case somebody's interested regarding this group. Okay, thank you for that, Mr. Restucci. I appreciate that information.
No problem, sir.
Last one, Mr. City Manager, there's a couple items on our payroll vouchers that are larger than usual. And a couple of those I can understand more likely going to be due to retirements. There's about 3 other transactions that are a little bit larger than usual. And I was wondering if there's an explanation for those.
I was going to say, I do notice there are 2 payroll vouchers on the check register starting on page 1. There are 2 in excess of $10,000. Both of those are longtime officers who have retired in the past month or past 6 weeks. Let's see.
3786, for example, that's another large one also, 5693, 71.
We can research as to why that was larger. I don't know. I don't recall that being an officer who retired, but I can follow up with the chief afterwards if we want to check into it. I'm just not sure on Officer Cantu.
And also 3804. Not sure that's an officer as well. I don't know who that employee is. And also 3895. They're a little bit larger than what we typically see in here. So I want to make sure it was something that was not out of the ordinary.
No, okay, thank you. The 3804 is the court administrator. This would have been the payroll during which the council's approved division supervisors contract, the collective bargaining agreement had taken effect and was effectuated. So some of them may have had retroactive pay back to the beginning of the year applied to this pay period.
That would make sense. And if you could just follow up with those and make sure that that's the case, I would appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Council, for indulging my questions here. And if there's no more questions, what is the desire of Council on the consent agenda?
I would move to approve. This is John Henry.
I'll second. This is Jim Restucci.
Okay, motion by Councilmember Henry, second by Councilmember Restucci to approve the consent agenda as presented. Is there any debate? Hearing no debate, City Clerk, will the City Clerk please start the roll call on the vote?
Okay, Mayor Guerrero,
Yes?
Deputy Mayor Stremler,
Yes.
Counselor Farmer,
Yes.
Counselor Henry,
Yes.
Counselor Restucci,
Yes.
Counselor Broersma.
Yes.
Okay, 6 yeses, motion is carried. Motion carried.
Motion is carried. Thank you very much. Up next, we have our active agenda, which is our item A is 2020 budget amendment number 1. Consider adopting an ordinance amending the 2020 budget. Council members, again, we'll start with each one of you guys, see if you guys have any questions on this item, and we'll go down the list, and we'll start with our Deputy Mayor Stremler.
No questions.
Councilor Farmer,
No questions.
Councilor Henry, okay, Councilor Henry. Okay, I hear no audio. We'll move on to the next one. Councilor
I
Restucci.
apologize. I just found my mute button, but I have no questions.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Restucci, questions on this item?
No questions, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Broersma.
No questions at this time.
Okay. I don't have any questions myself. I reviewed it and it makes sense, so I will not, I don't have any questions. So what is the desire? Actually, Ms. City Manager, can you just give us a brief overview on this item before we move forward?
I'd be happy to, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. Very simply, the first quarter budget amendment contains a number of changes that flow primarily from 3 factors. The first, importantly, is that when council adopts a budget in December, it is based off of estimated or projected ending fund balances for the year. After we close out the year in January and February of 2020, we go back and update those ending fund balance to the actual amounts. In this case, thanks to a lot of good work by staff in keeping tight control of spending at the end of the year, all of these changes effectively were to increase the ending fund balances to reflect actual 2019 balances. Secondly, there's a smaller group of technical corrections and adjustments to reflect certain budget actions that were taken by council in December of 2019. Those are listed out in the narrative, and there were no unforeseen impacts there. And then finally, the last group includes adjustments to personnel costs arising from a number of different factors, the approved collective bargaining agreements, increases in state workers' compensation rates that were released after council completed the budget process, and likewise increases in some healthcare benefit costs from our providers that were received after the budget process was completed. And that pretty much sums up the main changes.
One of the areas that we know in the past we kind of kept a close eye is the garbage fund. And I do see that it had a difference, an increase in expenditures. Are we still going to be okay as far as that fund is concerned?
We should still end the year in the black in that fund. I'm trying to look for the actual budget summary by fund. Yeah, we'll still end in the positive, about $24,000. So yes, we should be okay with what we're seeing there.
Thank you. All right, what is the desire of council on this item?
Motion to approve.
I would second that. This is John Henry.
Okay, Henry, and then was it Stremler the one that moved the motion?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so motion by Councilmember Stremler, second by Councilmember Henry to adopt an ordinance amending the 2020 budget. Is there any debate on this item? Hearing no debate, the city clerk will now start the roll call vote.
Mayor Guerrero,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Stremler,
Yes.
Counselor Farmer,
Yes.
Counselor Henry,
Yes.
Counselor Restucci,
Yes.
Counselor Boersma.
Yes.
Okay, 6 yeses, motion carried.
All right, motion passes. Thank you. Up next, we have our 2020 classification and compensation schedule amendment. Consider adopting an ordinance amending the 2020 classification and compensation schedule last adopted on January 27th, 2020. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a companion action to the budget amendment that the council just adopted. Each year, as part of the budget process, we detail out a classification and compensation schedule for all positions at the city that mirrors the approved budget amounts. Earlier this year, the council adopted an adjustment based on some collective bargaining agreements that have been approved over the holidays and in early January. This now completes that process to bring all of our classification and compensation schedules in sync with our various collective bargaining agreements. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, council members, I'll go down the list one more time and give you the opportunity to ask any questions if you have any. Deputy Mayor Stremler,
I have no questions.
Counselor Farmer,
None.
Counselor Henry,
No question, sir.
thank you. Counselor Restucci,
No questions, Mr. Mayor.
Counselor Boersma.
I have no questions, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so hearing no questions, what is the desire of council on this item?
I'd move to approve. This is John Henry.
This is Dean Boersma. I'll second that.
Okay, motion by Councilmember Henry, second by Councilmember Boersma to adopt an ordinance amending the 2020 classification and compensation schedule last adopted on January 27th, 2020. Is there any debate on this item? Okay, hearing no debate, the city clerk will now start the roll call vote.
Mayor Guerrero,
Yes?
Deputy Mayor Stremler,
Yes.
Counselor Farmer,
Yes.
Counselor Henry,
Yes.
Counselor Restucci,
Yes.
Counselor Boersma.
Yes.
Okay, 6 yeses, motion passes.
Motion passes, thank you. Up next, we have item C, which is Federal Aviation Administration Entitlement Transfer. Consider approving a resolution to transfer $150,000 in FAA entitlements to Deer Park Municipal Airport to assist them with their capital improvement in 2020 and to be reciprocated for Deer Park to Sunnyside in the next budget cycle. Mr. City Manager. Mr. Case, are you with us?
For the mute button.
Sorry, I must have my mute button. I had my mute button on. Apologize. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is an item brought to us by the Federal Aviation Administration. The FAA administers funding programs for municipal airports across the country. As part of that process, they maintain a series of what they call funding entitlements. And for us, in the amount of $150,000 a year, we're allowed to accrue up to 3 years worth of entitlements, after which the oldest one, it turns into a use it or lose it status. However, the FAA also facilitates the swapping of entitlements between cities, because not every city is ready for a planned project at its municipal airport at the same time as when the monies are distributed. So consequently, the FAA came to us earlier this month on behalf of the city of Deer Park here in Washington State that has a project ready to proceed this year, but which is short of funding, with the offer to swap our FY17 entitlement, which would expire for us in May, to swap our FY17 entitlement to Deer Park in exchange for obtaining an entitlement from Deer Park in the next budget cycle. We actually do have projects in the future planned under the airport's master plan related to our tie-down aprons and property acquisition and perimeter security and fencing. Those are on the drawing board for 2021 and 2022. So getting the money in a future budget cycle would be optimal for our planning and project development process. We don't currently have anything with FAA in this year's on this year's calendar. With that, Public Works Director and Airport Manager Shane Fisher or I would be happy to answer any questions, but we recommend this for the council's consideration.
Okay, thank you, Mr. City Manager. I will now call on each council member to ensure you have an opportunity to speak, and we'll start with our Deputy Mayor Stremler.
I have no questions at this time.
Councilor Farmer?
There is a legal contract written up that guarantees us that money back.
Yes, Councilor Farmer, the agreement in the back of your packet, the request for FAA approval of agreement for transfer of entitlements, that is executed by us and by the FAA and by the entity to which we are transferring it. And so that whole contractual agreement is administered by the FAA, and we are guaranteed the funding in the future year.
Thank you.
Councilor Henry?
It sounds like a win-win to me, and I appreciate you coming to us with this. This sounds great for them and us, so kudos.
Okay, Councilor Restucci?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As Vice Chair of the Airport Board, I encourage my colleagues to support this motion. We've done this before with Bowers Field at Ellensburg some years ago. And it's a great way for us to make sure that we keep the money in the state for airports. So I encourage a yes vote.
Councilor Broersma?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So if I remember correctly, this was mentioned sometime earlier. Maybe it was in a private meeting I had with somebody, but I remember hearing something about this. And I also agree, let's keep the money in the state. Let's work together with other communities. I think it's a great idea. So let's move forward.
Thank you. City Manager, just one question. Do you think we'll have a project next year as far as you'll utilize some of those funds?
We are working with our contracted engineering partner, HLA. They do most of our airport project work for us on timetables for that. But short answer is yes. We have identified in the airport master plan projects related to airport security, which is a high priority for the FAA. There's an interest in installing security fencing around the perimeter of the airport. Before we can tackle that project, the FAA requires us to own all of the land that would be secured. There is a small portion of land on a parcel immediately east of our runway. It is currently owned by the port. The port has already signaled its willingness to sell that land to us so that we can bring it within the perimeter of what would be the future security fencing. Here again, since it's federal aviation, the FAA governs how that sale process and transfer would be conducted, but those are in the queue for 2021 and 2022, and we're optimistic about being able to move forward.
Thank you. Okay, so what is the desire of council on this item?
Mr. Mayor, this is Jim Restucci. I move to approve a resolution to transfer $150,000 in FAA entitlements to Deer Park Municipal Airport to assist them with their capital improvements in 2020 and to be reciprocated from Deer Park to Sunnyside in the next budget cycle.
I'll second that motion. This is John Henry.
Okay, so motion by Councilmember Restucci, second by Council Member Henry to approve a resolution to transfer $150,000 in FAA entitlements to Deer Park Municipal Airport to assist them with their capital improvements in 2020 and to be reciprocated from Deer Park to Sunnyside in the next budget cycle. Is there any debate on this item? Okay, hearing no debate, the city clerk will now start the roll call vote.
Mayor Guerrero?
Yes?
Deputy Mayor Stremler?
Yes.
Councilor Farmer?
Yes.
Councilor Henry?
Yes.
Counselor Restucci,
Yes.
Counselor Broersma.
Yes.
Okay, 6 yeses, motion passes.
Okay, motion has passed. Thank you. Up next, we have item D, which is emergency resolution for COVID-19 pandemic response extension. Consider approving a resolution extending the proclamation of emergency and adopting findings of fact and procedures for managing the COVID-19 public health emergency. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll provide some updates on the background and current status of the pandemic, and then speak to the specific adjustments that are being proposed in the Council's resolution at this time. As Council is aware, COVID-19 is a highly infectious disease that results in serious respiratory illness, organ damage, and even death. In March, Yakima County declared a local health emergency and urged cities in the county to do the same. And when Council acted on March 23rd, that evening, there were roughly 30 confirmed cases in the county and 1 death. That same evening, the governor issued a statewide stay home, stay healthy order. It is in place through May 4th, and we expect that it will be extended at least in part. Now, just a month later, Yakima County has the highest per capita caseload of COVID-19 in the state. As of this evening, we have 1,098 confirmed cases and 46 deaths. Public health data show that several areas in Sunnyside have a high incident rate of COVID-19, and I've provided some maps generated out of public health data from health department and others and those sources to kind of visualize, give a visual of that information. State and county health officials have enacted several measures to fight the pandemic, and they are monitoring health data to consider how and when to begin easing some of those measures in the coming weeks. Consistent with the recently released federal government framework for reopening the economy, it's expected that social distancing will still stay in place for some time even after certain activities resume. In March, Council enacted several adjustments to city operations and council procedures in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. These are currently set to expire tomorrow. The city has an ongoing need to adjust operations to respond to this pandemic and to comply with existing and potentially continuing federal, state, and county public health directives. The primary revisions in the resolution before you tonight include some adjustments to language, instructing residents to pay their utility bills and transact routine city business via phone, email, drop boxes, or online in order to continue minimizing in-person contacts. It clarifies, pursuant to a governor's proclamation issued on April 17th, that the city shall not shut off or charge a late fee or reconnection fee for non-payment of city water or sewer utility services for the duration of that proclamation. We are trying to changing the language a bit to try to restrict the use of shared facilities such as the sport courts, playground equipment, restrooms, and shelters in order to enable the city to keep the parks open for individual exercise and leisure activities while observing social distancing. We would continue canceling permitted or city permitted group events for the duration of the governor's order, and continue suspending in-person municipal government meetings and hearings and council rules regarding in-person attendance for the duration of Governor's Proclamation 2028. And we wanted to clarify direction to the city staff. The previous order spoke to tracking staff hours associated with combating the pandemic. We also want to make sure that staff understand it's our expectation they track supplies and equipment purchases in the hopes that we might qualify for future federal reimbursement. And these actions would essentially be extended by 1 more month or concurrent with when the governor begins and the county begins lifting these orders. Be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, we'll go down the list one more time and see what kind of questions we get on this one. The first one will be our Deputy Mayor Stremler.
I have no questions.
Okay, Councilmember Farmer,
No questions.
Councilor Henry.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
I was disconnected, but are we taking the vote right now?
No, right now we're on the question section for item D, which is the emergency resolution for COVID-19 pandemic response extension.
All right, I was just making I was making sure we weren't ahead. I'm good on questions there. I would definitely, just a comment of definitely moving that forward because it seems like the right thing to do.
Thank you. Councilmember Restucci,
No comments, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Borsma.
No, I have no comments, Mr. Mayor, either.
Okay, no comments from myself either. So what is the desire of council on this item?
I would move to approve the extension on the COVID-19 pandemic. This is John Henry.
I second it, Counselor Strumler.
Okay, motion by Councilor Henry, second by Councilor Stremler to approve resolution extending the proclamation of emergency and adopting findings of fact and procedures for managing the COVID-19 public health emergency. Is there any debate on this item? Hearing no debate, the city clerk will now start the roll call vote.
Mayor Guerrero,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Stremler,
Yes.
Counselor Farmer,
Yes.
Counselor Henry,
Yes.
Counselor Restucci,
Yes.
Counselor Boersma.
Yes.
Okay, 6 yeses, motion passes.
Thank you. And hope this proclamation, or the governor, I guess, ends this sooner rather than later, so we go try to get back to normal a little bit more than we're currently now. So this is a little bit strange for me to do everything over the computer. So hoping it'll be over sooner rather than later. So thank you for that.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Our next item is going to be item E, which is Sunnyside Police Department Reserve Program. Receive an update of the Sunnyside Police Department Reserve Program. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will actually turn this over to Police Chief Escalera to provide you his update on the program at this time.
Well, good evening, everyone. Let's see, the Sunnyside Police Department Reserve Program currently has 3 reserves in place right now. We had one full-time officer who resigned from the department in order to go into the family business, but he wanted to maintain his status as a police officer as well, and did so by just sliding into the reserve program, which was great for us. So we currently have a couple of applications that are out there now. We're processing one individual now. We're almost done with him, basically getting him into the program. We got him out of the March 14th test group that we did for the full-time positions, and so we've also made a pretty significant recruiting pitch on that March 14th group, and we did it again here last weekend for the physical fitness portion of that exam, and trying to get some more folks interested. And I think that it's kind of reached out to a few people, which kind of helps us out, hopefully, in the long run here. So currently, the challenge that we have is basically keeping the reserves once they start. You know, they're typically eager and they find everything exciting and fun, but, you know, then once they get involved, then it's, there's so many other interests out there anymore that it's very difficult to keep their interests up. So we're basically just trying to start them out a little earlier if we can on the selection process and get them in, get them riding, and kind of get them hooked into the head of the program before they even start the academy, which is going to be in January of next year. But the recruitment efforts have begun, and they continue to progress forward. We're going to keep reaching out a lot to our local folks here to extend up towards Yakima and then obviously towards Tri-Cities as well, and try to grab some additional people and get them into the program. And our goal is 10, so we would like 8 to 10 reserves in the program, and again, keeping them interested is a tough thing anymore. The volunteerism nationwide is not as strong as it once was. So that is what we're at right now with the reserve program.
Okay, council members, we'll go down the list, see if you have any questions for our chief, and we'll start with Deputy Mayor Strimler.
No, I don't.
Councilor Farmer,
No.
Councilor Henry,
No questions.
Councilor Restucci,
No questions this time, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Broersma.
Just a comment, sir, just kudos to trying to build that program back up. And I know it's a lot of work, but I think it pays off in the end. So yeah, points for that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we agree. We think it's pretty essential for the department and the community both.
I have maybe a couple questions. How long is the academy that they'll be going to in January?
It's a 6-month program. It's generally at nights, three nights a week. It's held at either Columbia Basin College in Tri-Cities or in Moxie. And so the 6-month program is they're 3-hour classes, so you get 9 hours a week, and they're always at night. So it's a pretty good stretch there, but necessary for those that work during the day.
Great. And the last one is there pay for these reserve officers, such as our volunteers at the fire department?
No, there isn't. That is something that we will be addressing as a recruitment and retention piece. Is we do have something in line for that to approach city manager with, and I think that's going to help quite a bit.
Okay, so yeah, it sounds like that's something that at least I believe would encourage a few more individuals to be interested, as it is at the fire department. It sounds like they have a lot of volunteers, and I'm thinking the experience and being able to obviously ride in a fire truck is a big plus, but also having a little bit of a pay for volunteering would go a long way, especially depending on how many hours they plug in doing this reserve work. So it's something that's going to be requested in the budget. I think it'll be at least well received in my part to try to encourage more individuals to volunteer for this reserve officers that we have openings for.
And I appreciate that. We have talked about incentivizing with a pay associated to it after they get their 16 hours a month in, which is their volunteer time, and then any hours after that they get paid very similar to the fire department.
Thank you for that report. And is there any last minute questions for our city chief of police? Okay, hearing none. Thank you for that report. Up next, unless anything else you want to add, Mr. City Manager, on this?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, so up next we have items from council members. It looks like, yep, items from council members. And our first item is council request status report, Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There it is up on screen. There have been essentially no changes in most of these items. Several were awaiting either the resumption of construction or similar activity in the spring or summer after the pandemic restrictions are lifted. And I know one example, Fire Chief Anderson was letting know that the architect was that's working with them to try to get the space plans finalized and get ready to pull permits for the modifications at the fire station to house the residential volunteer program. They're still trying to figure out the logistics on that, but they are trying to move forward. And unless there's questions from council, we don't have any other specific updates at this time.
Okay, council members, we'll go down the list one more time, see if anybody has questions on these items, or if you want to add an item to the council request status. Deputy Mayor Strimler.
Not now. When we want to get into open session again, I probably will, but not this way. It's too difficult.
Okay, Councilor Farmer.
Just one item, and I didn't get in time before the city manager spoke. I want to go back to the East Edison Highway development. Are we as a council going to be able to approve the plans before we start with construction?
Council's not normally involved in street design, and in fact, last year during the WCIA presentation on council risks and liabilities, councils are actually strongly discouraged from being involved in design decisions because of the potential risk or liability to the city from that. We are continuing to take the concerns voiced by council back to HLA to see if they can mitigate some of that. Part of the information we're getting back is that that right-hand turn from YVH northbound onto eastbound Edison, even as currently designed, is not intended for those large double-length semis. Perhaps Public Works Director Shane Fisher can provide some further information on the conversations he's had with HLA at a future update, or at this one if you're ready.
No, that's fine. A future update. My concern was, and I've had lots of citizens come to me, we're not going to bulb out the sidewalks like we did on 6th Street and Highway, are we?
No.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Absolutely not. I'm sorry, there was some crosstalk. I apologize if I misheard something.
Okay, that was my question. That was my main concern, that we don't bulb out like we did on 6th Street and Highway.
No, these will be standard width sidewalks. This is a small component of a much larger sidewalk safety project. This is designed to connect the high school with YV Tech. There are, down that north side of Edison, extensive stretches of that north side that have literally inches between the roadway and a fall off into an agricultural kind of field, ditch area, and other areas where there's really no safe walking path. So this goes all the way from YVH to Barnard Street. It'll create a safe passage for the students that are trying to transit between the programs at Sunnyside High School and YV Tech. And the adjustment that's being made right there at the intersection of YVH and East Edison will not create a wider sidewalk than would be standard for, I think it's about a 5-foot width, if Director Fisher can confirm that.
Yes, it is 5 feet.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question.
Up next, Councilor Henry, questions or comments?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Councilor Restucci?
This is just on the council request status report, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
I have no questions, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Councilor Brosma?
I have nothing for the request form, no.
Okay, so thank you for that. Up next, we have other reports, announcements, and or questions by council. So this is where you get to ask questions and any reports of any meetings you've had or any announcements you want to make to the rest of council. Here's your opportunity, and we'll start with our Deputy Mayor Stremler.
I have none.
Okay, Council Member Farmer.
No.
Councilor Henry.
I had one question. I'm just curious what that line was that came out of City Hall. I think it was a week ago, maybe 10 days ago. Was it people paying their bill? Because that was crazy. They were all the way down the road.
So once a month on the 20th, utility bills are due. In March, we began setting up social distancing out front, consistent with the public health guidelines that were put in place at the time, and we began encouraging residents to pay their bills online or by phone, or to use one of the drop boxes. In March, we had placed tape out there and had some success with that. This month, a month later, at the beginning of last week, We still had a very high volume of in-person residents attempting to pay in person. Since March, we've actually installed a second drop box. There's a drop box in the foyer and a drop box outside at the corner of the building on Edison and 9th. We were encouraging people to drop their payments in both locations and again to try to use the phones. That notwithstanding, we still took in $27,000 in cash in-person payments on Monday the 20th. And that was only a modest drop from what we normally see. So we are continuing to try to shift people's understanding and thinking. It was a very good opportunity for sort of real-time point of contact, public outreach and education to work with folks to get them used to the new tools. We handed out information on our online ExpressPay. ExpressPay, as folks know, was experiencing some difficulties. They are used by many cities, and they had experienced a more than 40% increase in traffic on their sites in less than 30 days. And unfortunately, the equipment that they needed in order to upgrade had to be obtained from overseas. That came in last Wednesday. They took the site down, upgraded it, and they've reported they've had no service issues since then. So we are hopeful that with continued education and emphasis on these alternatives to paying in person, and with the strengthening of the ExpressPay option, that the May payment cycle will go more smoothly.
That's crazy because the line wrapped right around the Dropbox there. You think more people would have used it.
We found that folks, it's an unfamiliar process, and so staff often were coaching folks on what would be necessary in order for them to securely, put their cash in the envelope, address it properly, make sure to put their statement in with it. It's new, or it was new to many. And so it took them some time to make that adjustment, but we'll continue working to help that go as smoothly as possible.
I appreciate that. I got one other question. It's down there in Schoon Road. There's a pothole down there that's been there for a while. It's not huge, but the deal is people are swerving into the other lane to get around it. I'm pretty sure it's an SVID thing, but I think we should light some fires under some butts because this thing has been there a long time and it is getting deep. And I feel like we're going to get some damage reports here soon if we don't do something about it.
Council member, you say that's on Schoon Road. Do you know roughly the cross street or a landmark?
Right across the street from the RV park there, right there in that cul-de-sac that one of our council members from prior lives in there.
Okay. I'll ask Director Fisher. You got all that?
Yes, I do.
Oh, good.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
You bet.
Councilor Restucci.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tomorrow I'll be attending the Unmanned Systems Industry Council meeting with the State Department of Commerce. I was invited to join the council. It was created in 2016 by the Department of Commerce in cooperation with the Centers of Excellence for Aerospace and Advanced Manufacturing and the Washington State Department of Transportation Aviation Division. As council's representative to the airport board, I've been asked to participate in a series of meetings to enhance collaborative opportunities. And they also want to use the time to determine how state agencies might be able to help assist us in developing business, growing our workforce, and creating new prospects for unmanned systems and the unmanned systems sector. And then recently, I was appointed interim chair of the state's Autonomous Vehicle Work Group Executive Committee. Our next meeting will be May 6th. The current chair, Darren Grendel, who was director of the Washington State Transportation Commission, or the Washington Traffic Safety Commission, has decided to leave state service. And then lastly, on May 19th, 2020, the Transportation Commission will hold its first meeting of the year since COVID-19. And the biggest discussion item will be whether or not to enforce the fares and toll rates that we set in December of 2019. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Council Member. And up next, we have Councilor Boersma.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I only have one thing, and this is kind of related to what Mr. Henry just was talking about too. On Swan Road, there is a housing project going in, and they trenched across Swan Road to access water, I believe. Every so often while they were working, the company would go ahead and patch that and maintain that where that trench happened. Well, since they haven't been working now for some time, that trenching area, that patch is really deteriorating. And I'm wondering, I don't know if it's the company that needs to do it or if that's the city's responsibility, but if there's a way that we can get that patched before it starts causing damage to people's cars, that'd really be nice.
No, thank you for the report, and we'll follow up with, we'll have Public Works follow up either with the city or with the developer.
Thank you.
Okay, and I have no questions or announcements, so we'll move on to our next item, which it looks like is upcoming council meetings. And Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At the moment, the upcoming agenda is a little light, in part because of items kind of being on hold until some of the partners involved in some of these activities are able to kind of restart after the pandemic. But coming up on May 4th, we do have a workshop scheduled. It would have to be conducted virtually. Right now, we only have the one item on it. The city attorney is confirmed to be able to brief with council and have a discussion on our parking and vehicle ordinances and possible opportunities for updating those and strengthening those. We understand that this format virtually is a little, is not always as conducive to a good dialogue and discussion as a face-to-face meeting. Frankly, it would defer to the will of the council as to whether you would prefer to kind of keep on track and have this conversation now so that you can start giving thought to potential amendments or direction you might want to give staff with the city attorney in the future, or if you'd prefer to have that conversation in person. If you choose to defer it, potentially say to the June 1st workshop, then our recommendation would be at this time there'd be no business for the May 4th workshop. Certainly open to the desires of council on this.
Can you cover May 11th and May 25th, and then we'll go down the list to ask council members if there's anything they want to cancel the workshop or move forward as is?
Certainly. On May 11th, the fire department and finance departments are working together to prepare a fire inspection ordinance amendment. Council in 2018 adopted ordinance to help kind of re-energize our fire inspections program and adopted a rate or fee structure associated with that. It was modeled in part off of fee structures from larger, more complex cities. In attempting to implement it, we found that it could be done perhaps more simply and equally cost effectively without increasing rates. And so we are in the process of trying to come up with a refinement of that proposal. This, as council may recall from those earlier discussions, is an important step in the process we're doing to try to improve the city's WSRB rating. This is the organization that rates every few years fire services, protection services, and it has an important impact on commercial insurance rates in the city. So it's definitely something we want to move forward with and be able to start this program hopefully this summer once we get a little more clear of the pandemic. So that's the main item on the current agenda for May 11th. And at May 25th, which actually, if I'm not mistaken, I should clarify, that should be May 26th. May 25th is Memorial Day, the holiday. So May 26th would be the next regular meeting in May. Depending on the outcomes of the next steps coming from the governor's office and from county health officials, that would be our next opportunity, most likely, to look at further adjustments or sunsetting the COVID-19 emergency declaration. Don't yet have that on there, but that would be queued up for that May 26th meeting.
Okay, thank you. And we'll go down the list and see if you want to keep the workshop as is, to do the meeting virtual, if you want to postpone it until June to try to get this in person at council chambers if we are able to at that time. So first we'll have Deputy Mayor Stremler.
I say let's postpone it, or let's cancel it, I should say.
Okay. No additional questions on the agenda items?
Pardon?
Any questions or anything else you want to add to the regular meetings?
No.
Okay. Councilor Farmer.
Since I was the one who kind of started the thing about the parking, I think it's I think we almost have to do it in person. So I would suggest or recommend waiting until we can meet as a full council.
Okay.
The other thing, when you're talking about the fees for the fire department inspection, I think that needs to be done when we can talk face to face. I would like to postpone that also.
Okay. Councilor Henry.
I would like to postpone. I don't think we need to postpone the fire thing, but I would like to hear from Chief Anderson about that, what he wants to do on that and get his recommendation.
Okay, Councilor Restucci.
I think we should postpone the May 4th workshop, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And Councilor Boersma.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I would also agree, as long as there's not a lot of pressure on us as far as this parking and vehicle ordinance, I think that can wait until a later date. As far as the fire inspection, I'd like to have that discussion. I know we lose a lot of the dynamics of the face-to-face meeting when we're trying to do this via phone or internet, but I also would like to hear what the fire chief has to say about this.
Thank you. So it sounds like we're in agreement that we're going to postpone our parking and vehicle ordinance discussion with our city attorney to a future date. It looks like at this time it might be our workshop on June. So tentatively we'll put it for June 1st, Mr. City Manager. And it sounds like we will be hearing from our fire chief on May 11th regarding our ordinance for fire inspection.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'll invite Chief Anderson, if he'd like to, during the department reports, to just give you a preview of that. I do know one consideration for them is that in order to implement the ordinance, we also have to work with the State Department of Revenue, because this is administered through our business licensing program, and they require a 60-day lead time to implement. But those are all considerations that we can discuss with you at that future meeting.
Okay, thank you. Up next, we have items from city manager and department heads.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I'd like to acknowledge Director Albo. There's one advantage to being me in my office and her coming in remotely is she was able to email me the information in response to the question on the large payroll checks. And so we can confirm 2 of them are associated with employees in the police department who retired, and so they had a full retirement payout. One example is of an employee who simply left employment. They didn't retire, but they did leave the city, and so they received a larger than usual payout for that. And the other 7 are all confirmed as retroactive pay per the collective bargaining agreement for the division supervisors.
Thank you for the clarification.
And then just a quick update on from me. As Mayor expressed earlier, I know we are all hopeful that we'll hear soon from state and county officials regarding the next steps to stop both the spread of COVID-19 and ease the impacts on our economy. I've been part of some webinars and conference calls with state officials where they've discussed some of the data that they're monitoring in order to move to what's called that phase 1 reopening as defined in the federal government's guidelines. They're looking for sustained downward trends over 14 days in the number of confirmed cases and positive test results and hospitalizations. One thing that we're considering or that's a factor in this is not all parts of the state are recovering from the pandemic at the same rate. Yakima County is still trending upwards, curve more reminiscent of what was seen in Puget Sound 2 or 3 weeks ago. And even if the governor begins to lift statewide orders, Yakima County health officials have signaled that they may choose to keep certain tighter restrictions in place longer here. We are also starting to see some of the economic impacts of the pandemic, and I'm sure Council is aware of, I think the current count is over 26 million Americans have filed for unemployment. It's expected that some businesses simply may not recover, and tax revenues are trending lower. So, I'm working with the department heads to make sure that we maintain our fiscal discipline to help us handle any challenges ahead with the fewest impacts. Certainly this nation and this community have weathered very difficult times before. I'm confident that we will come through this storm as well, and we are already seeing signs of the path forward. Last Friday, the governor announced the restart of low-risk construction activity based on a plan developed with the building industry and trades unions together. Today, we learned that fishing, hunting, and golfing activities may resume on May 5th, provided that folks are following strict social distancing requirements. And also today, the Yakima County Development Association reported that the federal Paycheck Protection Program has reopened with an additional $310 billion available nationwide. In the previous round of the federal stimulus program, more than 30,000 Washington businesses were awarded $6.9 billion in the Paycheck Protection Program. So these are all important steps. They're among the first of hopefully many to come. And we appreciate the support of the community and certainly of council in the hard work of staff in adapting to all of these changes and continuing to deliver essential services. So thank you for that. And with that, I'll turn it over to the department heads to do their reports. I'll kind of go in the same order. I'm used to seeing you all sitting in front of me. So I'll start with Fire Chief Anderson, if you'd like.
I'm here. This is Chief Anderson. Well, I don't know if you have any questions tonight. I'm be more than glad to answer some of your questions tonight on the ordinance issue. And then only other thing that I'm working on, I'm actually sitting at my desk right now looking at the countywide mutual aid agreement. Finally made it through the legal department in Yakima, and I'm reading it now to send over to Mr. Casey, probably to send to our legal as well. So it should be a future agenda item.
Cool. Thank you. Director Fisher?
Yeah, I just have one update. Skyline Reservoir Project will be starting back up late this week. T. Bailey will be moving in, getting set up and ready to go. Looking at about 14 to 18 day duration on this phase 2 project. So basically they'll start painting the exterior of the paint of the tank. Other than that, that's all I have.
Shane, I got one question for you, if that's okay.
Sure.
Did any of our guys citywide, did they continue working through the whole pandemic as if it was just a normal day and just following the guidelines?
Yes.
The other question is, since on Friday construction was open, did that open any of our projects, or do you know anyone that has actually started working in the construction industry since it opened on Friday?
It didn't change anything for us. We've been fully staffed and fully going for the most part. We're not doing a lot of the frilly stuff. We're just taking care of the required business. As far as construction within the city limits, I'm not aware of anybody that started up right after that announcement. But I'm sure we would have heard of something. Andy's out still doing, minor inspections. So he's kind of out and about. So if he'd have seen something, he'd let me know.
Cool. I just saw the guidelines, and since I'm in the construction industry, the standards are ridiculous. I don't know how anyone's going to possibly follow those at the current time. So I was just curious if you knew anyone that was. I wanted to go observe them.
Okay.
Mr.
Thank
Mayor,
you.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to ask Shane a question.
Please go right ahead.
Okay, thank you. Shane, have you seen the letter from David Schumacher, the Director of Office of Financial Management, regarding the update on construction job site requirements for capital and transportation projects?
I did see an email come in from Kathleen Davis late this afternoon.
Yeah, that's the one I'm talking about. Okay, so you haven't seen it yet?
I saw it come in, but I did not have a chance to read it yet.
Okay, there's a new phase 1 construction restart COVID-19 job site requirements. John, you might want to look at that as well. I'll send these links to the clerk so she can
Oh,
share.
I have. That's what I was referring to. It is ridiculous.
Okay. I'll take your word
Mr.
for
Mayor,
it,
if I
sir.
may.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, this is the city manager. You're right that the Office of Financial Management did send that out, that letter out. Both Shane and I got it late this afternoon, but it does contain a link to the requirements that were negotiated and developed by both the Building Industry Association of Washington and the state's construction trades councils. I had a chance to monitor the governor's announcement of that, in which the heads of both of those organizations spoke, and have been starting to work with Shane on reviewing that. Councilmember Henry is correct. These are very specific, very strict. The head of the Construction Trades Union kind of put it this way in the media availability on Friday. This is now on us as trades unionists to do this right and keep our jobs going. If we do it wrong, we'll be shutting ourselves down, was his message to his members. And so there's a recognition that these are first steps towards a broader opening, but hopefully, if conducted successfully, will enable construction activity to resume more broadly in subsequent steps. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so we have, is it Elizabeth who's gonna go next?
Yes, this is Elizabeth.
Yeah, sorry.
Wanted to let you know that as Mr. Casey stated earlier, the finance department was experiencing a high volume of traffic, and we actually had half the staff. So normally we would have 6 people at work in the finance department, and we were down to 3. And we found that not taking money in person was actually harder, because you have to check the Dropbox, and then if there's cash, we do a double verification. So during the month of May, you probably will see more of the finance staff back in the office, just in order to answer the phone calls and assist customers with trying to get their payment made. We know that a lot of customers just have decided that, you know, they want to still pay in person, and we're doing everything we can to accommodate that. And so I've actually rescinded my request to telecommute. I will be taking, obviously tonight, I took my laptop home so that I could be a part of the meeting virtually. But we also will be evaluating on an as-needed basis who needs to be in the office. And with that, that's all I have.
Thank you for that. Up next, I think we have our Chief Escalera.
Yes, the only thing I have is just basically to expound on that March 14th testing group. We tested them last weekend, physically did the physical fitness, and that went well. And then now we did the oral boards. The oral boards were concluded this last week. That went well, as we had a lot of favorable comments from the board members that come from other departments. And now all we have to do is move into ratifying the list with civil service, and then that will be complete. Then we move into the background phase from there. So it's moving right along. That's all I have.
Mr. City Manager, anything else?
No, not at this time. Thank you very much, sir.
Okay, so unless there's any other business that come before us, and there being no further business to come before council, and without objection, I will adjourn this meeting at 7:40. If you have no objection, meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
One
Thank
quick
you.
question, our next meeting's May 14th?
May 11th.
May 11th.
May 11th. All right,
Yes,
thank
I'll-
you.
Yes, our workshop
Thank
got
you.
canceled, so it'll be May 11th, sounds like.
Sounds
Thank
good.
you.
All right, I got it, thank you.
All right.
See you guys.
Everyone, have a good evening.